What is up, everybody out there in YouTube land? Nintenjoel here once again, and as you can see, I got something a little bit different this time. These are just 10 games on the Super Nintendo that I feel are underrated classics. Games that are definitely good, people know they're good, but they just don't really get talked about too much anymore. There's a lot of hype on a lot of expensive games these days, and there's a lot of hype on a lot of really good games these days. But some games that are actually pretty good kind of get left in the dust, or because they're cheaper games, they maybe don't get noticed as much. Not all of these necessarily are cheaper games, but they're games that just don't seem to be talked about very much. This is not by any means a top 10 list or anything like that. There's a lot more underrated games that I like on the Super Nintendo, and because of that, I just did these in alphabetical order. So starting with the first one, we have Addams Family Values for the Super Nintendo. Obviously, it's a Super Nintendo video. So, Addams Family Values is actually a pretty dang good game. It's an overhead adventure game, and it's really cool. I mean, you get items, you kind of get stronger as you go, and you can save your game eventually. It takes a long time to save it first. But there's a lot you can do, and it's a really cool adventure game, kind of Zelda-ish, if you will. Not as good, but you know, for a budget title, this one's actually really cheap, so get your hands on it. It's actually a fairly decent game. A little bit difficult at first. You're very underpowered, and like I said, it's kind of hard to get to that first save point, but once you do, yeah, it's definitely a good experience. The next one I have for you guys is one that I truly love. This is Axelay on Super Nintendo, obviously. I keep saying Super Nintendo, even though this whole video is Super Nintendo. Axelay is a shooter with incredible graphics and very, very well orchestrated music, and just a feel to it that feels like an arcade game. It's really crazy. You don't really get a lot of 16-bit games that really feel like an arcade experience, but this game is the exception. Just with the excellent graphics and scrolling and multiple different types of levels that just all look quite different from each other. It's a very engaging experience, though I will say it's quite a difficult one. Axelay is not an easy game, but it's definitely one I recommend if you are looking for a quality shooter that will give you a run for your money. The next one I have for you is one I just got recently, but I've been looking for a while. And this is another good example of a cheaper game that is actually pretty darn good. Ignition Factor for Super Nintendo. Ignition Factor is a firefighting game. That sounds cheesy, but it's an overhead, almost adventure-type firefighting game, and you go through buildings. You can only select 2 items at a time, such as like a hatchet and a fire extinguisher, or like a chemical extinguisher, and like a rope, and like there's all kinds of different things, but you can select 2 items at a time, and they will help you go through each level and each little quest, as it were. And you just have to go through these buildings and fight fires. It doesn't sound very fun, but because it's in an overhead adventure type setting, it is actually really darn cool. It's also a game that's generally going for less than 10 bucks, so get a copy if you can. The next one is one I have been playing since I was a teenager, The Lost Vikings. The first Lost Vikings is so damn good. There are actually sequels to this game, and they are pretty darn good as well. But for the most part, The Lost Vikings 1 is my favorite. Basically, you have 3 Viking dudes that you control. You can switch between all 3 of them, and it's a side-scrolling platforming puzzle game. You have to get all 3 Vikings through every single level to the exit. If one dies, you may as well just start over on the level, because you have to get all 3 to the end for you to go on to the next level. Now, each Viking has a different ability. The Red Viking, he can jump, and he can run and bash his head into things. That'll actually break walls sometimes. And then there's a guy that has a bow and arrow and a sword. Sword for short range attacks, bow and arrow for long range attacks. And then there's a dude with a shield. Now the shield can be used for a couple different things. It can be used to block things, obviously. It can also be used to put above his head so that one of his counterparts can stand on his head. And he can also float. If he jumps off like a cliff and holds the shield above his head, he can also float. So, interesting mix of characters, and you have to use them in conjunction with each other to get to the exit. So it becomes a puzzle game trying to figure out how exactly you're supposed to defeat every level. Very, very good game. Awesome graphics, very quirky soundtrack, and it's actually funny in some points. If you let your characters stand around, for instance, they might yawn or pick their nose, but yeah, it's just a really fun game. Okay, fifth one on the list is Raiden Trad. Now, it's probably Raiden Trad, actually, now that I think about it, but Raiden Trad is an overhead shooter that is just an overhead shooter. I mean, there's nothing that great about it. It's a pretty standard shooter, but in the greatest way possible. It's simple to play, it's fun to play, the graphics do the job, it's not anything flashy, the music is there. I mean, there's nothing flashy about this game. It's just a game that's cheap and very fun to play, and it's especially fun with two-player action. I love overhead shooters. I like them more than side-scrolling shooters, and Raiden Trad just has something about it that I keep coming back to time and time again. There are definitely really good shooters on the SNES, and some that are very expensive, but I have to say Raiden Trad is probably one of the ones I play the most. So check that out. I like the weapon upgrade system and just everything about it. It's a really good game. I remember playing it in the arcades, so really good stuff. I don't know if it was actually Raiden Trad that I played in the arcades, but I definitely played a Raiden game. Not sure which one. Anyways, moving on. Another game for you guys that seems to be an underrated classic. I never hear anybody talking about Rock and Roll Racing. Rock and Roll Racing is amazing. It's a really, really cool game. Obviously, it's a racing game, but it's not like a Mario Kart type racing game or a, you know, F1 racing game or anything like that. It's actually kind of a overhead type view, more like RC Pro-Am type game. In fact, this might even be considered almost a sequel to RC Pro-Am, but it takes place in like space, and there's actual tracks from actual bands in there, like there's an Ozzy Osbourne song, or maybe it's a Black Sabbath song. And I've talked about this game before, actually, now that I'm talking about this. But it is a really, really good game, really cool tracks, and you battle people. You have weapons and stuff, and you can upgrade your tires for traction, and you can upgrade all kinds of stuff to your car. It's pretty freaking neat. So, yeah, Rock and Roll Racing, definitely an underrated classic. I highly recommend you check that out. Now, this one is going up in price quite a bit. When I got this, I think it was like 25 or 30 bucks. Now it's going for more like 40, 45 bucks. Run Saber on the Super Nintendo. This is not a very long game. If I have to give it one drawback, that's probably it. It's also not a very hard game. There are different levels of difficulty, however, so you can kind of amp up the difficulty a bit. Overall, it's not too hard of a game. It is a side-scrolling platforming game, and you're a dude with a sword, a glowing sword. It's a lot like Strider. And yeah, you just go around upgrading your sword, slashing shit, doing backflips, and just kicking ass. And there's just something about the graphics and the music and the Strider-esque-ness about it I really like. And I notice a lot of people are starting to talk about this game just recently, but before, nobody talked about this game. Run Saber is a very good Atlas title. It's on Atlas, so it's got to be good. Yeah, I highly suggest it. It's, like I said, kind of getting expensive, so you want to get it while you can. But yeah, if you like hack and slash side-scrolling sword action, I would definitely check that out. Also, kind of side-scrolling hack and slashy sword slashing action is Super Valis 4. Now, this is a game I literally don't think I've heard anybody talk about. I've never actually like gone searching on YouTube or anything, but in all the videos I watched, nobody ever mentions the Valis games, and for the most part, from the ones I've played, they seem really good. And this one, I don't know if they all are, but you're a female protagonist in this one. It's very similar to Ninja Gaiden, whatever. Ninja Gaiden. Yes, there's a very similar upgrade or a weapon system where you have a sub-weapon, and it's very similar to that. You have a sword, side-scrolling, platforming with a sword. It's fucking amazing. It's a really good game. Super Valis 4 is one of those games that I'm just surprised is not more expensive. It seems like people would be more attached to it. Also of note, another Atlas game. Atlas truly does make good games. Even back then they made really good games. These days they're more known for like the Shin Megami Tensei series and Persona and all that, but they still made awesome big games even back in the day. Super Valis 4 and Run Saber were excellent titles in my opinion. One I just got recently from a buddy, Thunder Spirits. I haven't even showed this in a pickup video yet, so that'll be a weird little continuity error. But yeah, I will show this on a pickups video at some point. But anyways, Thunder Spirits. This is a really good shooter. I haven't really played it a lot or anything, but it is really, really fun. Really enjoy the weapons upgrades, really enjoy the graphics, and just the general feel of the game. Just an awesome game. Definitely check that out. It's one I need to give a little bit more time, but definitely one I wanted to include in this list. And the last game, another shooter actually. I didn't include any RPGs on this list. What do you guys think about that? No RPGs. For once. UN Squadron. Now, UN Squadron is an amazing game. I find it quite difficult. I just saw my nephew kick so much ass on this game, I really actually couldn't believe it. He used to play this as a kid though, apparently. I just got this not too horribly long ago, going on like maybe a year, but I've only played it so much. I'm getting better at it, but it's a tough game. It's a steep learning curve, and it's a bullet hell sometimes. There's just bullets flying at you from every direction. Kind of cool about UN Squadron is sometimes screen scrolls left, sometimes screen scrolls right. There's clouds going up and down, and there's freaking just amazing graphics and really nice presentation. You can choose the weapons on your jet ahead of time, and you actually get a choice of 3 different people as your fighter, and it actually makes a difference. It's actually pretty crazy about that. But yeah, very, very good game. UN Squadron right now is actually still not too high priced of a game, but it's one I'm starting to hear people talk about a little bit more, kind of like Run Saver. I think it's going to be one of those games that does eventually start to rise in price a little bit more. It's already gone from like $10 game to like almost $20 game, so get it while you can. What do you guys think of this list? What do you think about these 10 underrated classics? Are any of these like a favorite game of yours, or can you think of any other underrated classics that you really love? Leave me a comment, leave me a little list down below, and let me know what you think are some really, really good Super Nintendo games that maybe other people don't know about. And if you did like the video, go ahead and thumbs up the video. And if you want to see more videos by me, and hopefully thumbs up those videos, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's right down there. It's red, and it says subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, I really appreciate all your views, your comments. It makes my day. So that's all I have for you guys. Thank you very much for watching once again, and keep rocking the retro games.